is Amazon. It's really Netflix, Amazon against fighting.
That makes sense.
In that pay category.
Well, my sense of it is this: if you had content and you wanted it to be, and you wanted to sell it over the web, you could go to Netflix and no one else mattered. So Netflix dictated the pricing. And now you have Amazon Prime. I don't know who else will go out there. But I just have to imagine, as a supplier of a product, if you have more than one distribution channel, you have more value suddenly than you did before. And I've never understood why it took these companies so long to build these models. Because the Netflix model, I mean, I love Netflix, but what are they? They're a marketing company. They don't produce any products. The way you obtain their product is over another product, which is an internet service. The thing they do incredibly well is marketing.
Absolutely.
That's what they are.
And let's also data mining too. I thought the cool story when it came to anything with content was Blockbuster's underwater so much right now that the studios have asked them to obviously pay something when it comes to licensing, and they can't. So they're asking Blockbuster for their DVDs back, and if they don't give them back, they actually will have a late fee in giving the DVDs back to the studios. It's just so funny. Blockbuster's feeling their own wrath right now.
Very funny. Couple of other things. This happened about 2 weeks ago, but I still thought it was noteworthy. Dex One, they're the guys who bought business.com for what, about $350 million? So 2 weeks ago, they essentially took that $350 million asset and got very little for it. I don't know, it was a few $1 million bucks. They sold that to a private equity firm, which just goes to show these digital companies, they can go up and go down very quickly. Last thing I want to talk about here, just briefly, is something I've seen in the last month happening with all these platform companies, Facebook, Twitter, Google. All of them are having this existential debate inside about, do we like call it the parasitic companies that work on top of us and create value for us as a platform? Apple, I think, we can criticize them a lot, but they've been pretty consistent in, here's how we're going to treat you if you are a developer on our platform. You look at Google, you look at Facebook, you look at Twitter. I think Twitter's the worst. They're struggling with what to do with these companies. Google, we all heard this week, they're mad that people are using their algorithm because in a way that allows content farms to grab traffic. The biggest problem I have with that is, what is a content farm? I mean, anyone read an average newspaper today? An average Metro newspaper? It's press pools, it's Reuters, it's AP, it's aggregation of blogs. They're content farms. So for some, I mean, a lot of demand media is taking a lot of heat, but I'm not sure what they're doing is really any different than any of the other major publications.
Well, wait. There's a big difference. There's a big difference there. You're talking about quality versus quantity.
Yeah.
What happens
quality, but what's quality?
No, wait. There's a big difference. If you've ever done a Google search and gone to a content farm that has absolutely nothing to do with the search that you did, that's exactly what
Well, I would say that is a problem, right? But just like when I go and read any major publication today, and sometimes the frickin' misspellings are the same between CNN and Bloomberg.
But the issue was, Google said that, like demand media, is gaining the system by creating all these microsites to up eHow's numbers,
right?
Which of course gave this massive value to demand media on its IPO. Yeah. And they're saying that it's doing it in a way that's returning poor search results.
Right, and I'll just make this point about that. And this comes up at board meetings all the time with me, where there is what I call a free rider in one of our companies or in a customer, meaning there is one customer, one partner who's figured out a way to game your system a little, and they're getting more value than what they should be getting. The danger of trying to punish that free rider is that you confuse all the other people in your system by saying, we're going after this one. The collateral damage could be much higher than just letting that free rider get away with what they're doing. couple of other companies, obviously Facebook. I'm very deep in the gaming space, and some of you, I think I've mentioned this before to you. Facebook is essentially a gaming platform. About half of all the time spent on Facebook is actually for games. 7 of the top 10 applications on Facebook are games. But they're really going hard after the gaming guys. And they're making it much harder to do what they used to do on Facebook, which was get free users. That's okay. Now they have Facebook credits, and they get a 30% cut of all the gaming traffic, all the revenue from that. But they're making it so hard that now these gaming companies are saying, it's actually worth it now for us to invest in our own location and just try to grab people that way. To me, that's a bad move. I think Facebook should be very, very careful about what it changes, when it changes its ecosystem. I have this notion that I talk with my partners about in the US, or in, let's say, Santa Monica, when you want to do anything to the community, like build a little store, you have to have an environmental impact report. And some of us don't like them, some of us think they're okay, but the logic of it is you're upsetting the system. So let's make sure we understand what we're doing. I actually think Facebook needs to do a lot more of that sort of thinking. Environmental impact reports on when it changes one little thing, how that's going to affect the rest of the community.
Well, secretly, I was talking to Phil Rosedale the other day, who's with Second Life. He created Linden Labs. They have brought on 2 economists now that are working at Facebook. Pretty well-known economists that are looking at what's happening inside these ecosystems around currency and credits now internally.
Yeah.
Because it's so important, because they believe by 2015 they'll be the biggest bank in the world, being Facebook.
Yeah,
so
them and Tencent, that'll be the challenge.
Sure.
And then lastly, I think the worst of all of them is Twitter. My partner, Bill Gross, you might have read, assembled a couple of Twitter properties, called it Uber Media, did a few things that actually made a revenue model work on Twitter, and then was shut down. They've now corrected what the offenses were, and they're now back on. But Twitter doesn't have a revenue model. What Twitter does have is a $9 billion market cap, which is right now ethereal. It's there because someone said that's what you're worth. There's very little cash flow coming out of Twitter.
Isn't their revenue model venture capital?
Yeah, I made that, reminds me during the bubble, I asked one of these internet startups at Idea Lab, what do you sell? And he said, we sell stock to venture capitalists. So I don't think it's that bad yet with Twitter, but here would be my prescription. Sorry.
Don't they have about 50 million in revenue?
Yeah, I know, but a $9 billion market cap. So here's what I think I would do if I were involved on the Twitter board, is I would say, guys, we have no idea in this open platform what's going to make money. There's a lot of creativity out there. Lots of people want to use our platform. If we start to do things like saying, you violated this rule, you're out, then what happens is no venture capitalist wants to fund a company that's dependent on the Twitter platform. And I think that's already happening, because you just don't know what the rules are going to be. I think what they ought to do is say, open it up. We'll have some sort of credit facility like Facebook credits, and then look at all these nascent properties. The ones that look like they're starting to gain traction, you buy them. You buy them with $9 billion worth of wampum. It's a stock whose value is greater than a lot of companies with $9 billion of revenues. That to me would be the logical thing to do. And in fact, I think if Facebook had a view towards that when it opened up its platform, and it's surprising me that the venture capitalists didn't see it, but the #1, call it parasitic organism on Facebook is Zynga. Zynga itself has created $10 billion worth of value. Kleiner Perkins, the investor in Zynga, says it's the most profitable business they've ever invested in. And that's saying something. They've invested in a lot of companies. Maybe it's because the behavior isn't in that organization or any platform organization, but I think they ought to be looking at all these guys. Instead of getting 30% of Zynga's revenue, they'd be getting 100% of Zynga's revenue. And I think Twitter should do the same thing. Twitter has an even more pressing problem because they don't have really any revenue model. Yeah.
Quick note, on a positive note, Barack actually visited the Intel facility for manufacturing, so I think it's on his radar screen right now. So the second note is, on the 51% of manufacturing that's being produced here, does that count the Apple manufacturing facility in China?
No. No. And that's 50% greater manufacturing output in the US than China in 2009. Lastly, Groupon. some of you might have seen the numbers, but if you hadn't, I thought they were fantastic. Company didn't exist 3 years ago. 760 million in revenue in 2010, about 500 million of that in the US. And frankly, that was the interesting story to me. The fact that they're now in 35 countries. And that's a phenomenon that I've talked a lot about with my limited partners. Why are these companies commanding valuations so much faster than they used to? And I think part of the reason is they're not going after the 300 million US market only nowadays. They're going after the 2.5 billion consumer market worldwide. You couldn't do that 15 years ago. It was too expensive. Right. For a company at that age to have 35 countries, I imagine it's a hell of a thing to manage, but still very impressive.
Everyone, let's thank William Quigley for